Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are meeting with Adil Hussain, who is a masculine development coach. If you don't know what that is, join us today and we're going to learn all about the journey. Welcome, Adil. It's great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much, Maria. I'm incredibly excited for this conversation. So yeah, when you're ready, let's get stuck in.
Super excited. I have to say, I interview hundreds of people, and coming across your platform, I was like, I need to learn the journey. And I think there's a lot on your journey that a young person will be inspired by. And potentially, we might be learning a little more about how your work can actually contribute back to society and communication within society. So I'm excited about this one. But before we talk about what you're doing right now, I'd like to take you back to when you were a teenager. I know that you shared with me that you were interested in being a scientist, and you kind of joked and called yourself like the mad one. Tell us where that idea came from and how you went from that to the next step post-secondary.
So when I was young, I loved science. I loved it. I loved everything about just learning about chemistry and biology and how things worked. I loved TV shows. There was one that was called How It's Made. And I would just love seeing how day-to-day things, like for example, a bowling ball or a zip or a violin, how these things were made, things that we take for granted. So I loved it. So I think I just loved the idea of, being someone in a lab and just innovating and creating things. That very quickly changed when I realized, actually, as you got into secondary education, that science had also some really boring aspects of it that I just didn't quite enjoy. And that quickly kind of dissipated. But either way, there was that excitement from a very young age just to create and to invent things. My parents were very much of the, I would say, typical Asian kind of parenting. My dad's from Pakistan, mum was from India, so they were first generation in the UK in London. So I was second generation, which meant that my parents really wanted me to be good at school and just be smart. And that's actually what I became. I was a very smart kid, so I could take on any subject and I could do quite well. So I just really was encouraged to pursue that, I think, very traditional school route. Be good at school, get good grades, go to university, da da da. And that's actually ended up what happened. But I'd say I wasn't really encouraged to pursue other areas. For example, the hobbies, the sports, the extracurricular things that I think I wish I did, to be honest. I look back and think all I focused on was just getting good grades. And I can look back and think, oh, I wish I'd done more sport. I was terrible at sports. I was absolutely terrible. But I did get really good grades. And I do think that getting good grades and going into like a sixth form or a college and then getting to university and getting a degree helped me so much in my career. It helped me build the acumen, the kind of worldliness of education and understanding of very complex subjects that allowed me to articulate myself the way that I do, with a sound understanding of various different things. So I'm very grateful for my parents for pushing me in that direction. But there are some things that I think I would do differently now if I look back.
That's amazing. So tell us what you did when you graduated from sixth form. What did you go off to study at university?
So I initially went into psychology for a year. And again, I took psychology because I had an understanding about what I thought it was, but not what it really was. So my thing was, I'm going to learn about people and the brain, how it works. And I think what I wanted was sociology, but I picked psychology, which was very, very intense. And I found it incredibly difficult and I left it. I dropped out of university and I ended up doing business and procurement, which is about how to buying things for organizations, which actually was fun. But again, if I'm being honest, I took that because I just wanted to get a degree, because it was pushed on me that a degree is very important. And that's the only reason why I just picked something that was, okay, I don't know business, which I think actually a lot of people that I know have done that same thing, just taken a degree, just so they have a degree under their belt. So I think, again, if I look backwards, I do wish that I'd maybe picked a degree that I felt more passionate about, something which was maybe had a higher skill set that I think I probably maybe could have monetized a bit more in the future or had a bit more of a niche rather than something that everyone did just to get a degree.
I'm finding this really interesting. So I'm going to go back to psychology and fast forward to where you are right now. You
Yes.
described your role as a masculine development coach in where you help men find their truth, find their voice, uncover their confidence, and develop a healthy masculinity, which you
Yep.
stated touches all areas of their lives. So I'm going to go back to your first choice of
Yes.
psychology.
Yes.
Are there
So
any connecting the dots with those two?
100%. I've always had a very innate and deep feeling of wanting to help people. Always. I just didn't know what that was going to look like. So that was my driver for the beginning when I did psychology. But I think I was so overwhelmed by the educational aspect of it when I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be who I am and just help. And eventually, actually, after that psychology degree, I did learn a lot of very interesting, beautiful things, but I couldn't picture myself going into clinical psychology or occupational therapy. That didn't quite align with me. And I ended up moving into being a personal trainer in between my career in purchasing and buying. So, as a personal trainer, for example, I was helping people. I was being the Mr. Motivator while helping them get fit, but also helping them with their mind. So, it still crept back into my life like 10, 15 years ago, even though I didn't pursue the degree of psychology. But I think looking back now, it would have been great to stick it out because there was an innate feeling of passion for that subject or for that feeling that is linked with that subject, and like you said, it eventually came to me anyway, where I'm doing the work with the guys around areas of confidence and uncovering traumas and all of these type of things.
So, in the work that you've been through from working for the British government in health services, moving up
Yep.
that ladder, taking on
Yes.
what you described as various risks and jumping from one company to another company, always using income as that driving factor until
Yep.
the pandemic. What
Yep.
happened to you during the pandemic and how did it shift your career focus?
I want to take a step back. So during that time of me jumping from job to job, one thing I was always told was stay at the same job for a long time, and so it looks good on your CV and looks good on your LinkedIn. But for some reason, I was always adamant that that doesn't work for me, and I don't care. I'm happy to move from job to job because I always moved up, at least in terms of salary, and slightly more in terms of responsibility. And I didn't listen to the status quo. And actually, it's something that I advocate. I advocate doing that. If you like a job, stay with it. But if you get bored and you're stale where you are, then it's okay to move. Even if it does look like you've only been at a job for 6 months, because I could articulate to the person hiring me why. It wasn't just about the money. It was because I felt like I couldn't move. And I always knew that I was someone that wanted to just express myself. And that was something that I learned. And as I moved through my career, I realized that I didn't like procurement because I don't like rules. I can't deal with boxes and contracts, and it's very, very boring work, especially working for the British government. You can imagine a government sector organization job. There's so many rules and so much red tape. Whilst I could do the job and I knew how to stick to the rules, it was quite suffocating for me. And in my last job before the pandemic came, I landed into a company where I could exercise my experience in the public sector, but it gave me the freedom to kind of also be myself and have that creative flow and expression. To the point where I eventually ended up speaking to the management, well, the owner of the company, because it was a small startup, and so I said, I'm more of a people person. Is there something else I can do in this company? And eventually I got into kind of like the face of the company role where I could speak to other public sector and other government organizations about procurement and buying without doing the procurement and buying. So I got to use both of my skill sets, which was perfect. But it meant that I had to really understand for myself what is it that I really like to do and what don't I like to do. And I think that's such an empowering thing that I was able to do to think, okay, I like this company, but I don't like the job. And I wonder how many people are in jobs that they don't quite like, but they like the company they work for. And instead of leaving, what if they were to have a conversation really openly with their management or seniors and say, what else can I do here? You know, I think that is
Mm.
very empowering. But during the pandemic, they let me go. They let me go because I was quite outspoken and management was changing its policies on a few things and they lost, I think, what they should have been standing for, which is for the people, public sector. It's about the people. It's about our nation in the UK. And all they cared about was money. So I think integrity wise, I couldn't stay there any longer. And they could see that was happening. So they asked me to leave. They blamed it on a bunch of things and, pandemic and performance and everything. But I knew that really they needed people that were yes men and yes women. And I wasn't a yes man. So they told me to leave. They gave me some money and said, you can go now. But during that whole process and that whole time, I was already going through a personal shift about what it is that I wanted to do in terms of helping men. I'd gone through a very difficult time personally with me and my family. And I realized that what I need to do is help men and young men find their voice. And by that, I mean, what is it that you're really feeling? And how can you express that? Because I kept so many things to myself, so much inside of me that suppression meant that I felt suffocated and it would come out in maybe explosions of frustration or anger. And I realized that more men need to speak up and share how they're really feeling. Otherwise, it's going to affect them and the people around them in an incredibly adverse way. So actually, being let go from the company was a blessing in disguise. And it allowed me to pursue what it is that I really wanted to do. And clearly, as you so rightly said, back when I was 18, psychology, what I was supposed to do and what felt good for me on the inside.
Well, I don't know if it's what you were supposed to do, but I definitely see a connection. So now I'm going to make another connect the dots, if it's okay, Adil.
Mhm.
So you left, or they asked you to go during the pandemic, which was a time that thousands of people globally, tens of thousands of people globally, would have also lost their jobs for
Yes.
similar reasons or for reasons of, there's so many different reasons. But like you said, sometimes an organization will use the economic crisis to
Yeah.
find an excuse to let somebody that they probably wanted to let go before anyway.
Yeah.
You jumped into your current role, but at the same time, you weren't just helping men find their voice, you were also unwrapping the skills of an entrepreneur, which, if you go back to the degree you did, would you say that that business degree helped you doing what you
Nope.
do?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
If I look back at the degree now, I would say it was underwhelming in terms of the way that it equipped or should have equipped me to be a businessman and entrepreneur. I've learned more in these last 2 years just figuring it out on my own than I did 3 years at university, where I paid, quite a significant amount of money uh, for that experience. So this is why when I mentioned earlier, I would do things a bit differently. I might not have gone to university if I'm honest. I liked the idea of an apprenticeship. I liked the idea of learning from people or getting thrown in at the deep end. And whilst it might seem risky, I think that it's quite it's priceless, I think. As much as I've struggled, like it's been a very difficult 2 years. But wow, have I learned like so much. Yes, the hard way, but it's the way that's going to stick because I could pick up a book and I could learn and I could read it and I would remember what I had to remember for my exams, but I didn't really apply it. So I couldn't apply a lot of the business terms that were being used. And even the stuff I learned about procurement, I learned more in the procurement role itself than when I was at university. Just having that degree got me through the door. So I paid 34,000, 35,000 pounds just to get me in the door. And then paying it off for 4, 5, 10, 15 years later, I think I would have done things differently. But you don't know until you do it. And even
Mm.
people that are watching and listening to this, they still have to go on their own journey and work it all out. But the key thing that I would say is just listen to yourself. Follow your passion, follow your heart, and not don't just follow the money. Don't just follow the money because eventually you'll get to a point where you'll lose the heart for that job that you had just because of money. Money doesn't serve as enough of a motivator to do a job that you could do for a long period of time.
I find that really interesting. And it's also one of your top three tips. Don't chase money, chase experience and expertise. Living in a society where it is very materialistic, people like shiny, bright, big things,
Yeah. Yeah.
expensive. How do you and young people looking at this type of lifestyle will assume that that's what they should be aspiring for? Because subtly and unconsciously, suddenly money becomes success. And when you speak with young people, they kind of talk about success in terms of how much money they'll be making in their future. So,
Yeah.
how do you not chase money when we're living in a very material driven society?
Yeah. Okay. You have to look at what money represents to you. For example, for me, money represents freedom. I want to be free. Freedom means I want to be able to buy what I want, go where I want, and not be tied down where my time is money, where I'm giving up my hours for someone else to build their empire, and I have to ask for time off work. As an example, I have to say, "Sir, boss, can I have a week off to go to Seychelles?" Oh, no, it's the wrong time of the year. I don't want that. And now, me being a freelancer, that's fantastic. I don't have to ask anyone, but I'm actually working more hours than I did when I was working for a company. If you are chasing money, you're ultimately chasing something else, an underlying thing, because you can have all the cars and all the houses, but ultimately, what does that really bring you? If you think you're chasing the cars because you want status, that isn't really going to last either, because that means it can go like that. If
Mm,
you're chasing something, if you're chasing just to be liked and loved, then there's something else to look at. You want to be seen as someone that has nice clothes, but why? Because you want to be loved or you want to be liked and you want someone you want to be you want attention. You have to understand your real driver because money isn't the driver. It's the things that money can do for you. That's the driver. It doesn't last otherwise. And I would look at another aspect and think, you can't take anything with you. Let's be honest. We're only here. And afterwards, all you have is your legacy, what you've left behind.
very, very, very powerful way of thinking. I think that there's a lot of introspection that comes with that, being very
Yeah.
reflexive and understanding your values and understanding, what they kind of what they unwrap in terms of why they're important to you and how they can look in your future. Now, going back to what you were saying about your parents really wanting you to get that degree, it was
Yeah.
something that they really felt passionate about. For a parent potentially watching this right now, what would you wish they understood better from your experience?
So I'm definitely grateful that my parents pushed me to go and get a degree because it I wouldn't be where I am today if all of that didn't happen. Right? It all had to happen the way it happened because it did. But if I were to speak to parents now, I would say let your kids experience as much as possible. Let them make mistakes. And remember that their life is theirs. You've lived yours or you're living yours now. And you had to go and make all the mistakes that you did in order to be where you are. And yes, you've got um, a wealth of experience and you've got wisdom to share, but they have to learn. And the only way they're really going to learn is by making their own mistakes and finding their own path. So I know it might seem difficult to let them just fly, but just know that you'll be there for support, but not to push them in certain directions because you think you know best. I know
Mm,
that you have wisdom, but they're going to end up resenting it if you push them in a particular direction that they don't want to be in. Notice their flares, notice their passion that what lights them up, and see how you can nurture those areas of their life. Don't always think about the money. If you have money, they'll be fine. But see what other skill sets that you could nurture within them. How can you build them into being well-rounded, wonderful individuals rather than money hungry or power hungry or success-driven people? How can you cultivate a whole person? That's our job as parents, cultivating happy, healthy individuals that are going to go on and create other happy, healthy individuals and live happier lives. We're just doing good. So I
mm.
wouldn't don't push them into university, but let them express what it is that they want to do.
It's a tough one, isn't it, for a parent who can see their teenager at home unsure and unready, and they kind of want to get them ready and push them through. But I think you're right. It is about the experience of life. And sometimes, like you said, university is really expensive, and parents are wanting to make sure that that money is being invested wisely. And
Yeah,
the return on investment should really be a better career, more knowledge gained, and much richer cultural experiences is what
yeah.
I'm hearing from parents. Let
100%. I agree. And also, so we'll just jump straight in on another thing. A person's career can change many times throughout. So you might put them into a degree of a particular thing and they think, well, I don't want to do it anymore. After 10 years of doing that, like I did, I spent 10 years working for the British government, working in one particular field, and here I am doing it completely different. I wouldn't say I wasted my degree because I got a good, amount of work out of it, but at 35, I'm doing something completely different.
Mm.
So you just never know what path your life is going to take you down.
Okay, so let's go down the path of the Brotherhood Dubai. Tell us what that is and how the idea came to you.
So it came to me back when I was in London, when I was going through, as I mentioned earlier, a very difficult time, when I realized that, wow, I just need to speak to people. That's what I needed. I need to speak to men about how I'm feeling and just connect with other guys. So I created something in London, which was just a little a men's meetup where we would talk on Zoom. Like it's called a men's circle. So we just talk about how we're feeling. Oh, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling lonely, or whatever it was. We just be there for each other. And when I came to Dubai, I thought I want to do the same thing here. I was going to bring men together because you'll be surprised at how many men are lonely out here. Loads of guys come here on their own and don't have or know how to make friends, especially as adults. It's harder for men to make friends as adults. So I thought, let me just create a group and let's just meet up on the beach and let's talk. Let's go for coffee. Let's go for dinner. We've been doing iftars this month, bringing men together. We had one last night. And that's all we do. Every 2 weeks, we just meet and we talk and we offer each other counsel and a safe space to just be vulnerable and open. And that's what Brotherhood DXB is. It's a space to be vulnerable. It's a space to be who you truly want to be, where there's anything can be said, no judgment. It's completely safe, and it's incredibly powerful. Loads of men. We've now got, I think, 80 men in the group, and we've got a huge desert barbecue coming up in the beginning of May. Just again, completely free. Just bring everyone together, some food, some laughter, some good conversation, and really building a brotherhood of men that just want to do and feel better. Yeah.
Wow, Adil, we can go on forever. There's so much to unwrap, but we definitely have to bring this interview to a close. So what I'm taking away from this interview is your resilience, your determination to do different because you've learned, your ability to disrupt the system in terms of why do I need to work at the same company for a long period of time? Why is that the way? Definitely something that I can see through the stories you've told has been able to move you forward. I
Mm,
also am taking away that your own personal life was also an inspiration to your work as well. I'm almost assuming, and I might be wrong, so correct me if I am, that what you created for men in the UK or even here in Dubai probably came from a very personal place of
yeah.
yourself and
I
wanting to
needed,
find that connection.
yeah, it's exactly that. I needed this, and therefore I wanted to make it for myself so that other people can also enjoy it, but definitely for me, you
Mm.
know?
And and
Yeah.
and this and this is what I say to young people all the time is our career is very personal. And if
Mm,
they're looking at waking up every day and feeling really committed and driven to go and do the work they have to do, it's always best to align with the vision and the mission of the work that you're doing, making it very personal.
100%. 100%. And I would say just check in with you. Yeah, check in with yourself and see what is it you really want. Try not to compare yourself to other people because now you can look at people who are millionaires or from YouTube, but look at what it is that you really want to do and just give your best gift. Just give your gift to the world and the goodness will come. All the great stuff will come.
And that brings us right to the end of another incredible conversation. Today, we were speaking with Adil Hussain, who is a masculine development coach. We talked about his journey from being an aspiring scientist to psychology to business to working in several different companies and then to finding his journey towards entrepreneurship. I am so excited to finally bring somebody to our platform who gets men, because that is definitely something I see with students. They feel that pressure to be a certain way or to take on a certain career because it's gender or gender dominated or gender assumed or family pressure and all of those things. So Adil, hats off to you for helping men across the UAE and across the UK. Thank you everybody
Thank you
for
so
watching, and we'll see you again at our next Let's Talk Careers with Ms.V.